emancipation was enacted in 1838. In 1856, the British Guyana legislature gave the government the right to enact improvement taxes on the properties of the villagers. This led to a stalemate between the government and the purchasers of Buxton. In 1862, the governor of British Guyana confiscated the property of James Jupiter, Blucher Dorset, Hector John, Webster Ogle, Chance Bacchus, and James Rodney Sr., leading to riots. 6 village leaders set sail for England to air their grievances to the Queen. After arriving in Barbados, the Barbadian governor met with the delegation and advised his counterpart to absolve their properties of tax duties. The members of the delegation claimed they were not aware of the contents of the letter. In another effort to settle this dispute, some villagers, led by Nana Cully, decided to block the train carrying the governor and force him to listen to their grievances. With his train surrounded by angry villagers, the governor promised that Buxtonians would be exempt from these levies. Buxton sits on very fertile land which is surrounded by a series of trenches. Local farmers produce a variety of fruits and vegetables, including peas, beans, and the famous Buxton spice mango. See you next time on Bet You Didn't Know, compliments of Sigismund Consultants Inc.
Drink Pepsi Black for max taste, no sugar. Pepsi Black time, 18 hours.
The news from Guyana, the region and the world. Compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
The news at 6 comes to you with the compliments of Kentucky Fried Chicken KFC. With the news at this time, I'm Dennis Chabrol. Good evening. First, the highlights. Technicians from the Guyana Forensic Laboratory can now legally handle firearms and ammunition to conduct ballistic tests. Regionally, Antigua and Barbuda's former education minister has been freed of a serious criminal offense. Internationally, hundreds of women abused by former U.S. national gymnastics team Dr. Larry Nassar are to receive $380 million after reaching a settlement with USA Gymnastics. The details of these and all those stories in a moment.
Hate to stand in lines? Don't worry. KFC has got you covered with their drive-thrus, which are open now from 9 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. at Movietown, Vlissingen Road, Mandela Avenue, Reading Hoop, Parika, and the Amazonia Mall. That's right, you can drive through at 6 of their 9 locations. Remember, their current opening hours are 9 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. Go on down and let your taste buds savor the spices today. KFC.
It's finger-licking good.
And now the news in detail. Technicians of the Guyana Forensic Laboratory will now be able to be in legal possession of firearms and ammunition to conduct ballistic tests for court cases. An amendment of the Firearms Act was earlier today approved by the National Assembly. Government parliamentarian, attorney at law, Sanjeev Dattadil.
What this does, Mr. Speaker, is it allows those employees who are tasked and hired for the specific purpose of examining the firearms to handle it, to produce their report, and to give evidence in a court of law without them having to have a firearm permit.
The opposition of Partnership for National Unity plus Alliance for Change, APNU AFC, supported the amendment to the law as tabled by Home Affairs Minister Robson Ben. Shadow Home Affairs Minister Attorney at Law Geeta Chandan is, however, recommending that the technicians at the Guyana Forensic Laboratory be properly trained to conduct ballistic tests.
It is hoped, sir, that they receive scholarship and they are given the opportunity to be exposed to the highest global standards. So, sir, as a former member of the bench and a current member of the bar, I cannot emphasize how important that is. If the technical staff are called upon to testify and they are not in possession of the requisite qualification, their expertise will be called into question.
Former Home Affairs Minister Attorney at Law Kemraj Ramjatan is cautioning against staff of the Guyana Forensic Laboratory taking the firearms out of the forensics laboratory.
We do not want to see the analyst here, although he or she is working on that gun for purposes of analyzing it, that they're going to take it home or put it in their car and so on. The laboratory has the facilities there. And once in there, they can do their thing. Nobody should then say they are in unlawful possession because they don't have a license. But we got to ensure that these protocols are adhered to so that they don't start gallivanting, as it were, with this.
Home Affairs Minister, Attorney at Law, Kemraj Ramchit, former Home Affairs Minister, Attorney at Law, Kemraj Ramchitan. The opposition of Partnership for National Unity plus Alliance for Change, APNU AFC, today welcomed the amendment to the Narcotics Act to include designer drugs such as ecstasy, but says the approach needs to be wide-ranging. With the amendment of the law, police and customs and anti-narcotics agents now stand a greater chance of securing convictions against persons caught with designer drugs. Opposition lawmaker Jermaine Figueroa says while he supports making the possession of ecstasy and other designer drugs a criminal offense, he thinks that there should be an alternative to sending convicts to jail.
Has there been any much thought to the implication this will have on our already overpopulated prison systems? Has there been any thought towards alternative sentences, alternative punishment, such as hours of supervised community services, sentenced to a drug rehabilitation center, for example? Has there been any research done, Mr. Speaker, to ascertain why our youth are attracted and are engaged in the use of these synthetic drugs?
He thinks that the government has failed to address a number of major related issues, including the need for proper testing and screening of users of designer drugs.
I do support the bill, but I believe strongly, sir, that much thought has not been put to the real intent of what the bill seeks to achieve. Where can the victims of these drugs go to seek help, Mr. Speaker? Are our healthcare providers trained to deal with these victims? And are our health facilities, do they possess the testing kit, toxicology laboratories to provide that will be most useful, Mr. Speaker, for those who abuse these drugs? These are questions that has to be answered.
Mr. Figueroa says government should have conducted a study in the use of synthetic drugs and hold a national education campaign about these drugs and the dangers they pose. He says there should be an interagency approach involving the ministries of Home Affairs, Human Services, Health and Education to combat drug use. 2 unvaccinated women and a partially vaccinated man have died from complications linked to COVID-19. Their passing brings Guyana's COVID death toll to 1,023. The Health Ministry says there are now 842 active cases. 12 of them are receiving intensive care as they are very sick. Official figures show that there are 14 new cases. 40 persons are hospitalized and 802 have been ordered by doctors to isolate themselves at home. In Lethem, a man has been arrested after he allegedly assaulted a woman because she refused to continue their relationship. Police say they are treating the incident, which occurred on Sunday afternoon at 5:30, as inflicting grievous bodily harm. Investigators say that a 43-year-old man lashed the woman and broke her left arm and hit her in her head with a brick. At the time of the incident, she was washing in her yard at Kanuku Drive, Lethem. He reportedly asked the woman to mend back their relationship, but when she refused, he threatened to kill her and commit suicide. The woman told police that she became fearful and decided to flee, but he grabbed her by her hair, picked up a piece of wood, and lashed her to her left arm and hit her with a clay brick to the head, causing her to receive injuries. She said she managed to escape and ran over to a variety store, where she sought refuge. The woman said that about an hour before, she and her brother had returned to Lethem. She said that as she was waiting at the bus service to collect her suitcase and bags, she saw the suspect riding on a bicycle heading in her direction, so she hid herself from him. In the Caribbean, the Bahamas government says the government does not have any intention of discussing becoming a republic. The government says that issue is on the back burner. The issue has been talking point on several Caribbean islands since Barbados last month shed its constitutional monarchy in which Queen Elizabeth was the head of state. Now that Barbados is a republic, the Governor-General has been replaced by a largely titular president. More, this report from Eyewitness News, Bahamas.
The Bahamas transitioning into a republic is not currently on the Davis administration's agenda. During the weekly press conference at the office of the Prime Minister, Press Secretary Clint Watson said while there are other matters at the forefront of this government's schedule, if becoming a republic is something the Bahamian people ask for, they would oblige. The conversation on the Bahamas becoming a republic was reignited last month when Prime Minister Philip Davis visited Barbados to observe its transition into a republic.
This has been an ongoing discussion since 1973. The next phase of our independence, you've heard many members of you've heard a member of the cabinet speak about his push to see it happen personally as an individual. It is not a conversation we've heard a lot of in recent years until we saw what happened in Barbados, but it's obviously in the hands of the Bahamian people to decide. It's not on our agenda right now. However, the Bahamian people can change that if they determine this is what they want to do. It will have to be something that the Bahamian people request and put on the government's agenda. There is a process that's different from Barbados that we have here in the Bahamas as far as how that would happen. It's a little more cumbersome than what Barbados had to go through. Based on our constitution, it will require 2/3 of Parliament agreeing to it, and then it requires a referendum for the Bahamian people that has to be unanimously agreed to. So there is a process that's quite different from Barbados that we would have to go through for that to be considered. But that will have to be driven by the people, and it's not on the agenda at this time. And Prime Minister has made it clear that if the people press for it, then it could be considered. But he has no particular view on the matter at this moment.
Spokesman for the Bahamas' Prime Minister, ending that report from the Bahamas Eyewitness News. Antigua and Barbuda's former Education Minister Michael Brown has been found not guilty of a serious offense. The judgment was handed down earlier today in court by Judge Colin Williams. Brown has maintained his innocence as bail conditions have now been lifted. The not guilty verdict paves the way for Brown to attend the All Saints and contest the All Saints West seat in the next general election, although a final decision has not been taken as to the candidate. Brown was charged back in November 2020 with a serious criminal offense, which cannot be disclosed for legal reasons, and gave sworn evidence to the court last Monday. The offense is said to have been committed 1 month prior to the charges being laid. Following his charge, Brown had been removed as Education Minister. Still in Antigua, that country's Prime Minister Gaston Brown says he will soon announce an amnesty for illegal immigrants in his Twin Island nation.
Even if you are not a citizen, even if you are an illegal immigrant, we want you to be part of this strong recovery. In fact, I'm contemplating whether or not we should not perhaps give an amnesty to the immigrants here who, for whatever reasons, maybe here illegally. We don't want anybody to be in a situation which they cannot contribute to live here permanently. So that's a discussion I'll be having with my colleagues next week and the upcoming weeks to determine whether or not we give an amnesty to the immigrants who are here, whose time may not be up to date in the country.
Antigua and Barbuda is home to thousands of Guyanese, nationals of the Dominican Republic, Jamaicans, and a small number of Trinidadians. Antigua Newsroom reports that Mr. Brown says his government does not want to disrupt family ties, as many of the immigrants who have overstayed their time now have children there.
And I'm not encouraging people not to keep this status current. I mean, it is illegal not to keep your status current, but at the same time, in a small society and recognizing many of these individuals, they are well integrated in our society. They have homes, they have they work, they have children here. We have to be flexible enough to allow for some formal integration of these individuals into society as we seek to get the contribution of all. So I will certainly speak further on that issue of a possible amnesty.
Both Prime Minister Brown's Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party and the opposition United Progressive Party have over the years leveraged the votes of immigrants closer to general elections. The Airbus A330-200 that Surinamese aviation company SLM is leasing from an Israeli company has been cancelled. Star News reports that after the deal fell through, this amounted to a serious blow to the SLM that wanted to fly the aircraft on the mid-Atlantic route in February. Star News learns that in addition to financial issues such as a state guarantee, compliance also played an important role in the screening of the company. Although far-reaching agreements had already been made and the deal had already been reserved for Suriname, it collapsed. Leo Brunswick, member of the supervisory board, had announced during a meeting with Suriname's President Chandrika Prasad Santokhi and other top government officials that the Israeli aircraft would be used to help make the company healthy. The SLM provides the mid-Atlantic route with a leased aircraft from Air Belgium. Star News says the failure of the lease means that confidence in the company will continue to decline internationally, making it very difficult to conclude beneficial contracts. And now, for the world news, we go to the BBC.
BBC News, I'm John Shea. The US Olympic and Gymnastics Federations have agreed a settlement worth $380 million with the sexual abuse victims of Larry Nassar, the former national gymnastics team doctor. The settlement is said to be the largest ever for victims of sexual abuse in the US. Ali Maqbool reports.
The settlement relates to the action brought by hundreds of gymnasts, including Olympic gold medalists, high-profile names like Simone Biles, and victims who can trace their abuse as far back as the mid-90s. Larry Nassar had been the main doctor for Olympic gymnasts, and while it's taken 3 years since his convictions to come up with this settlement, to be paid by USA Gymnastics and the US Olympic and Paralympic Committee, it's seen by many as clear acknowledgement by those organisations that they cannot escape accountability for failing to stop him.
The governor of Kentucky in the US says more than 100 people remain unaccounted for in his state alone after tornadoes ripped through the region at the weekend. Andy Beshear said 64 people were confirmed dead, but it may be weeks before it's clear how many lives have been lost and how much property has been destroyed. A Kentucky senator, Whitney Westerfield, said he was shocked by his visit to Mayfield, one of the worst-hit towns.
It was stunning. I wasn't prepared for the extent and the scope of the damage that I saw. As soon as I got in the drone in the air, I realized just how incredible the damage was. You could see the path of destruction. There were whole swaths of downtown Mayfield that just aren't there anymore.
Iran's ambassador to Britain says Tehran is still committed to the international nuclear deal and will not be intimidated by warnings that current talks are the last chance to revive the agreement. Mohsen Baharvand was speaking to the BBC after Britain's Foreign Secretary Liz Truss warned that time was running out. Here's Lise Doucette.
Patience is running thin in Western capitals. In their view, Iran is playing for time, dragging its feet at the Vienna talks while it accelerates its nuclear program, moving ever further from the limits agreed in the 2015 accord. Its ambassador in London, Mohsen Baharvand, insists Tehran is committed to the deal, but says time is running out for the other side. Asked about reports that Israel is discussing possible military options with the US should talks fail, the ambassador warned a country like Iran would not be an easy ride for anyone.
Russia has vetoed a United Nations Security Council resolution formally linking climate change and global security. The resolution would have resulted in global warming being listed as an international security matter, requiring the UN to make it a central part of its conflict prevention strategies. 12 out of 15 members of the Security Council supported it, but India voted against and China abstained. World News from the BBC. The Tunisian President Kais Saied has announced that Parliament will remain suspended until fresh elections are held a year from now. In a national address, Mr Saied said a public consultation process would begin next month with a referendum on constitutional reforms in July. Officials in Nigeria say suspected criminal gangs have raided a market in the central state of Plateau, killing at least 8 people, including children. The raid happened in the village of Pinau late on Sunday. Residents say the gunmen were responding to the arrest of a suspected member of their gang by a local vigilante group. An appeals court in France has cleared a well-known Congolese musician, Koffi Olomide, of sexually assaulting 4 of his former dancers. It overturns a ruling from 2 years ago that found him guilty of the statutory rape of one of the dancers when she was 15. Olomide was given a suspended 18-month sentence for holding the dancers against their will at a villa outside Paris. Nominations have been announced for the Golden Globes TV and Film Awards, but next month's ceremony is facing a widespread boycott over past revelations of racial prejudice. Our entertainment correspondent Colin Patterson reports.
Belfast, about the Troubles in the 1960s, has 7 nominations, including Best Film Drama and Best Director for Sir Kenneth Branagh. But any wins won't be seen on TV. Earlier this year, it emerged that not one of the 87 members of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association who vote for the Golden Globes was black, and that had been the case since 2002. In response, the rights holder, NBC, announced that it wouldn't televise the 2022 awards. Amazon and Netflix refused to screen their films to voters, and Tom Cruise returned the 3 Golden Globes he'd won.
BBC News.
That's the news to the moment.
KFC delivery is now available from the Amazonia location for shore-based Little Diamond residents. Call 632-0533, 632-0533, 6080162, 6080162, or 503-3591, 503-3591. That's KFC's delivery service from the Amazonia location. KFC.
It's finger-licking good.
And out in the news, a recap of the highlights. Technicians from the Guyana Forensic Laboratory can now legally handle firearms and ammunition to conduct ballistic tests. Regionally, Antigua and Barbuda's former education minister has been freed of a serious criminal offense. Internationally, hundreds of women abused by former U.S. national gymnastics team Dr. Larry Nassar are to receive U.S. $380 million after reaching a settlement with USA Gymnastics. The news came to you with the compliments of Kentucky Fried Chicken and KFC.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.
Giftland Mall, they're giving away vouchers from December 30 to Christmas Eve. You can say there's no such thing as Santa, but as for we on 103, we believe.
From December 13 to 24, listen to News Talk Radio Guyana 103.1 FM.
Answer a simple question and you can win yourself a voucher. Compliments of Giftland Mall.
Season's greetings to supporters of Giftland
and 103.1 FM.
The time in Guyana, 8